ID. So today we'll go further and we'll discuss some decision control statements and other statements in Python. So before we begin, just message S in the chat box so that I'll understand that my voice is clear to you. Please message S in the chat box so that we'll start. Okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So yesterday we discussed about how we can download the Python in our computer and how to install Python. I hope that you have installed the Python IDE or at least basic IDLE in your computer, and you have tried the basic things in that IDE, such as performing some calculations, some syntax. And yesterday we discussed about how we can calculate the current flowing through the circuit using simple Python code. So I hope that you have completed that things, and also I have asked you to do some calculations for KVL and KCL. So I also assume that you have tried that, and based on these things, we'll be moving further. Now, in programming languages, whatever programming language you see, you may came across some decision control statements and some looping structures in that programming language. For example, you may find something like if statement, something like while loop, something like for loop. So basically, these are some decision control statements, and sometimes they are called as looping structures in Python. Okay, so for loop and while loop, they are looping structures, and if statement, if else statement, switch case statement, such statements are called as decision control statements. So bigger question is why we are using this decision control statements and the looping structures in the programming language. As we previously discussed, we are giving instructions to electronic machine, and that process is programming. Why we are giving instructions to electronic machine? Because we want that machine should work for us, and it should complete our task, whatever task we are going to assign to that. Secondly, we have also understood in which language we should speak to give instructions to that machine so that the machine will understand that language and will perform activities accordingly. So the final conclusion was we'll use the higher level languages like C, Java, Python. We can't use programming languages such as Marathi, Hindi, or English. We can't program in that language. That also we discussed. So we'll be using the technical programming languages or the mathematical programming languages such as C, Java, Python. We also understood why Python only, why not any other language, or why it is the language of choice. That also we understood. Now, with this knowledge, what is decision control in programming? In daily life, as a human being, you came across different situations, different conditions, and based on that situations and the conditions, we take some decision. For example, after 12th, whether to join arts, commerce, and science, whether to go for the medical field, or whether to join engineering, and again in engineering, which discipline to join, whether you are planning to join electrical engineering, whether you are planning to join computer engineering, that decision you take, and that decision is based on some condition, some situation, some scenario, and that is nothing but your final year marks or that 12th result. Based on that result, you will choose the correct discipline for you, and based on your interest, you are going to choose a career path. Similarly, in case of any activities, whatever activities involved in your daily life, they are based on some decisions. So we take decision as a human beings. We are very much intelligent to take some decisions, and we are actually taking so many decisions every day. If I am talking about that the machine should work instead of humans, and whatever task I am doing that must be completed by the machine, then I am definitely expecting that the machine should also take some decisions. So it can be an automatic door opening system. That door opener should take decision whether to open that door or not to open that door based on certain condition. So whatever condition will be in front of that, or if there's some person arrives in front of the door will open. Similarly, if there is a temperature control fan, and let's say we define if the temperature is greater than 30 40 degree, in that case the fan should turn on, otherwise it should be off. So this is again an example of taking decisions. So if there is a robot, it should take auto decision. In industry, there are lots of automation machineries. They should be able to take decisions at their own. Secondly, you may have seen the ATM machines. The ATM machine should also take some decisions at its own. So whenever you swipe your card and put a proper pin and request certain amount to withdraw from that machine, that ATM machine should able to deliver that amount within given time, or otherwise if the pin is incorrect, then it should show some error messages so that the user can understand it. So every machine is capable of taking some judgments, capable of taking some decisions. How they are taking decisions, now that is the second question. So whenever we see the automation systems, automation machines or any other system, they are taking decisions. Now the next question is how they are capable of taking some decision. They are taking some decisions based on some instructions given to them. Now the instructions are given in the form of some programming language, and in that case the programming language must support decision control statements. That's why in every programming languages we will find some structures like if statement, if else statement, or any other statements that you can see. Okay, so with this knowledge, we'll actually start making some decisions in our project. Okay, so I'll write some Python code, and based on that, we'll understand how decision control works. Also, we'll understand basic syntax of Python and indentation that yesterday somebody asked about that thing. So we'll also discuss that thing in detail in the today's lecture. So let me open my presentation where okay. So this is the previous code that we have written to calculate some current flowing from the circuit, and this was the thing. We have completed this practical. Now in today's session, we'll be designing a small software to control the fan or your bedroom fan with reference to some temperature. Let's say if the temperature of your room is greater than 35 degrees centigrade, in that case your fan should turn on. Now, one thing that I'll just want to discuss here. The firstly, we are not connecting sensor at this point. Any kind of sensor we are not connecting here, but rather what we'll do, we'll take room temperature from user. Just like we ask user to enter some voltage, in similar fashion, we'll ask the user to enter some room temperature. But in actual scenario, there will be some hardware like microcontroller or PLC or Raspberry Pi, such kind of hardware platforms will be there, and some temperature sensor will be interfaced to that, and the temperature sensor will read a real-time room temperature, and that will be assigned to some variable, and after that that can be used for comparison. Okay, so this thing we are going to do here. Now firstly, I just write here temps variable. We'll take a variable as a temp. You can take any variable, but it should be, I'll suggest that you should take a relevant name. Okay, otherwise if you're taking x, y, z, and x is the temperature, y is the humidity, or something like that, in future when you are referring your code, you will come across that what exactly this x is, so you will not be able to relate it with the proper data. So I'll recommend every time you go with and use some relevant name to your variable. So if it is the variable which storing some temperature value, then you name like temperature, temp, or something like that. Now I'll ask the user to enter some room temperature. So initially, as we have understood in yesterday's session, the simple input function will do that job, and I'll ask enter room temperature. And this thing we have captured, but as we know, yesterday we have discussed that whatever room temperature we are entering here, that will be a string format. It will be in a string format, so it must be converted to some valid format. It should be integer. Otherwise, you can convert it into float also, but I am converting to integer. So it will convert this temperature to integer format. And now we'll go and write some program to discuss how this is going to work. Now I have to take decision. If the temperature is greater than 35 degree, then I'll have to start the fan. So I write here, if statement in a bracket, temperature, which is this value, is greater than, okay, now this is the relational operator or the comparison operator that we have seen yesterday, is greater than 35 degrees centigrade, let's say. In that case, we'll have to turn on the fan. If it was a C language code, so I am taking always a reference with the C language because most of you are familiar with this programming language. So if the temperature is greater than 35 degree, if it was a C language program, then I need to write like this. In if, then print or print type. So it's print only. In C language, there will be print type statement. Print fan is on. Okay, this thing, and then you'll have to complete this thing. Now in this case, if you are writing like this, then whether you are giving some state towards right by 4 spaces, whether you are maintaining the spaces, doesn't matter. You can write like this also, that is also fine. Even you can write like this also, that is also fine. Anything is fine if you are using C language, you are having the C language code. That indicates whatever written inside this is the part of this if statement because of this curly bracket. So it has got the curly brackets, and with the help of these curly brackets, it will be identified that this thing is the part of this if statement. Unfortunately, Python doesn't support this kind of curly brackets. Okay, so these curly brackets are not there in Python, so that's the problem. Secondly, as per the syntax is concerned, you have to put a colon here and then hit enter. Here you'll have to write. So whenever I have hit enter here, you have noticed that automatically the cursor is shifted towards right by 4 spaces. Okay, now it has shifted towards right by 4. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so it is automatically shifted towards right by 4 spaces. This is called as indentation in Python programming. So we'll understand it with this example. So I'll write the print fan on. Okay, now this is very simple code. Now if I write a statement here, print is the I am out of if statement. Okay, so in this case, what is happening? So initially, when I was declaring this thing, enter room temperature, then if temperature is greater than 35 degrees centigrade, then print fan on. This will happen, and this statement is here. So in case of C programming language, there were some curly brackets. So here there was a curly bracket. Again, here there was a curly bracket, indicating that these two statements are the part of this if statement. But unfortunately, Python doesn't have any kind of curly bracket. So how to identify which statement belongs to this if statement and which are the statements which are outside to the if statement? The statements having these spaces or indentation, this is called as indentation technically. The statements having these void spaces are the part of if statement. For example, if I write a statement like here, print I am inside the if. Okay, I'm just putting some random statement. Okay, statement. I am just writing here. I am inside the if statement. So this statement, this second statement, is also the part of this if statement. This is inside this if statement. The first statement is again the part of if statement, and again this is inside the if statement. But this statement, which doesn't have spaces like this, and this has got some spaces, but the second statement doesn't have any kind of spaces. So this statement is completely outside to the if statement. This is not the part of if statement. This thing, the spaces, is called as indentation in programming. So this is indentation. So we have given some spaces, and this is nothing but the indentation. So we have to understand how the indentation is used to identify which statement belongs to the if statement, which doesn't belong to if statement. So both these statement belongs to if statement as they are shifted towards right by some spaces, but this statement is not the part of if statement. So with this knowledge, let's understand and let's run this code and let's check the result of it. So I have saved it. and I'm not using a new file. I have just overwritten the previous file. But in your case, you take a new file, and in that you save this code. So I run this code, and it will ask to enter some room temperature. Let's say I put a room temperature 37 degrees centigrade. Now my room temperature is 37 degrees centigrade. In that case, the fan should turn on and it should start rotating. So it has displayed fan is on. I am inside the if statement, and then I am out of the if statement. Now we'll ask if this thing was not the part of the statement, why this is executed? It is executed because once this if is completed, this thing is completed, automatically it will come out of this if statement, and whatever will be the next statement will be executed. That's why this statement is executed. Okay, but this is one thing. Secondly, if what if I put a temperature less than this 35 degrees centigrade? Will this going to execute this statements, or only it will print this statement? Okay, let's check. So as far as what we are expecting, if I put a room temperature like 33 degrees centigrade, which is less than 35 degrees centigrade, which is not satisfying that condition. In this case, we are expecting that it should not print the fan on and I am inside the if statement. This two statement should not be printed, but it should print this thing because it is not the part of if statement. So let's hit enter and check out. So I am out of the if statement. The first two statements are not printed because the condition in that case is false. This is not true. Okay, what happens if I give also different spaces to different statements? For example, like this. This particular statement or instruction has got the 4 spaces, and this statement has got the 5 spaces. Still, both are having some spaces or indentation, so they must be the part of if statement. So actually, they are part of if statements, right? But if I give unequal spaces, or this spaces or this space is not matching with this space, what will happen? Whether it's going to generate an error, or whether it's going to be okay that it has got some spaces, so it's part of its statement, or it will highlight some error. That's the big question. So doing this kind of thing in programming is clearly an error in Python programming. So Python will not allow you to put this kind of things. It is not expected that we will give different spaces to different statement inside this. Okay, but in other things it's fine. Here you can use some different thing. So if you try to run this program, it will throw an error, like unexpected indent. Okay, unexpected indent, this error. That means here extra unexpected space is given. You have to remove that space. Okay, fine. Now it's okay if I having the if statement and I'm using 2 statement inside that, it should have equal space. But as this statement is not the part of if statement, so can I give some space here like this, or let's say I give a tab space like this? Will it be fine in Python if I give some spaces to this statement? As it is before the if statement, so clearly it is not the part of if statement. But can I give some spaces to that in order to make this, or I just want to make this happen, or just put some spaces there? So whether it's going to be happening or it's going to be valid statement in Python programming. So let's check. So this is again not the valid thing in Python. It will again going to throw us some error. So let's run this and check it out. Okay, so again the same error, unexpected indent. So these spaces are unexpected here. You can't actually write like this. So in Python you have to take care about it. In other programming like C, Java, or any VB, you need not to care about this. Okay, you need not to care about the spaces, void spaces, or indentation. But the Python uses this indentation in order to identify the block statements like if, while loop, for loop. So it is compulsory to put or some valid indentation to each and every statement. So if you are putting some incorrect indentation, invalid indentation, then that is clearly an error in the Python. So you should avoid that thing. You should not use any indentation, unexpected indentation. And whenever there is expected, you should put some indentation. Secondly, okay, what if I give no spaces inside this if statement? Okay, let's say we will check this possibility again. If I'm not giving any kind of spaces, any kind of indentation for the if statement, what will happen? So it is showing the error expected and indented block. In previous case, it was showing unexpected indentation. In this case, it is highlighting that expected and indented block. So it is expecting some kind of indentation here. Now, initially, by default, it was taking 4 spaces. What if I give only 1 space like this? Okay, I am going to give 1 space. So when I created the if statement and when I hit enter, so it was automatically taking 4 spaces. It was taking 4 spaces by default. And now I deleted all the indentation, all the spaces, and I have given one single space. Is it going to be a correct statement in Python, or again it will show error key, you have to give 4 spaces, or whether it's going to be a valid statement in Python? So as far as the definition and the syntax is concerned, this is completely valid thing in Python because you have to give some indentation. How much indentation is up to the user. So user can give 1 space, 2 spaces, 3 spaces, is up to the user. User can give any spaces as per his choice, as per his convenience, but at least there has to be a single space. That is what expected. So once you try to run this program, it's perfectly fine. The program will run. When you enter, let's say temperature equal to 40, it will print everything. Okay. Now this is all about the indentation. So this statement was unnecessary. I have just written here in order to understand the working of a statement. Now we'll go in more details of this if statement. This is if statement in very natural form, a very simple form. That if the temperature is greater than 35 degrees centigrade, the fan will be on. If the temperature is less than that, nothing is going to happen. So only thing is that whenever the condition is satisfied, the whatever written inside that will be executed, and that will be the outcome of your program. But what if the condition is not true? For example, if the temperature is not greater than 35 degrees centigrade, in that case nothing is happening. Let's check this. First of all, I'll enter the temperature is 40 degree. It's happening, the fan is on. Okay, but again if I try to run this code and I put the temperature equal to 30, in this case it should print something, but it is not printing anything. The program is terminated. Okay, it is executed and terminated. So that's the problem with the simple if statement. Although it's a valid statement, it's not the incorrect form of if statement. You will use this kind of system whenever you have to perform something only when the condition is true. In case of condition is false, you need not to do anything. In that case, we'll be using this kind of system. But what if I have to do something different thing? If the temperature is greater than 35 degrees centigrade, I'll turn on the fan. And if the temperature is less than 35 degrees centigrade, in that case, I have to turn off the fan. So in that case, I'll use the else statement, else print fan off, like this. So again, the else statement doesn't have any kind of condition. So if it is true, this thing will be executed, and if it is not true, if it is false, then this thing will be executed. The meaning is, do this if this is happens or this is true, otherwise do this. Okay, so like this. So it's a simple and straightforward meaning is like this. Do this if this is true, otherwise you have to do this. Okay, so it's a very basic and straightforward meaning of this particular statement. So let it be. Now one more question, and that is the bigger question. Here the indentation is having 1 space. This 1 space indentation is given. Here the indentation is 4 spaces. So will it be a valid thing in Python if I am giving unequal indentation in 2 different blocks, not in the same block? Okay. Previously we tried to give unequal indentation in the same if statement. So here all the print statement, another print statement was there, and they were having the different indentation. In that case, it highlighted some error. What if I given different indentation here and here? This is completely different block. It's else statement, and this is another block, which is if statement. So whether it's going to function or going to throw some error. So as far as the definition and syntax is concerned, this is absolutely fine in Python. No worries in this case. Okay, you can give different indentation in different blocks. So let's put some temperature value 30 so that it should display fan off. In the previous case, it was not displaying anything. It was not displaying anything. But in this case, it should display the fan is off. So fan is off here, okay? So it should, this is what as per our expectation. And again, important thing which we noticed that no any errors, no any warnings in case of unequal indentation in different blocks. So this is again important part of the syntax of Python programming. Now one more important thing, again an important thing and important aspects of Python programming. What if I have got the multiple conditions? Now, in your room, you have got the fan, and the fan doesn't have only two speeds, that's on and off. This is not the case with your fan. Sometimes your fan is rotating at a first gear, sometimes it is rotating at the second speed, sometimes it is rotating at the third speed. So your fan is actually rotating at different speeds based on the room temperature. If the room temperature, let's say 30 degree, you are rotating or you are putting your fan off. If it is 35 degrees centigrade, you are rotating fan at first gear or at the first speed. If it is more than 35 degree but less than 40, you are rotating your fan by second speed. And if it is greater than that, then you are rotating your fan by the third speed. So generally 4 to 5 speed options are there in every fan. So we'll be considering at least here 3 speed options for your fan instead of on and this kind of thing. So if you have got the multiple situation, multiple options, then also the decision control statement support that thing. Okay. So we'll be writing the code in that way. Let's firstly check if the room temperature is less than equals to 35 degrees centigrade. Okay, now I'm using less than equal to 35, that will it will cover this thing. So in this case, the fan is off. Okay, or I just give the equal indentation, fan is off. Here again we need to put another condition. So if, okay, so there is elif statement in Python where you can put some condition. Temperature greater than 35, so it is 35 degrees से ज़्यादा है. And then we have to combine this string with some another statement. So you have to use the AND operator. And temperature is less than equals to 40. So in this case, both the condition has to be true. The temperature must be greater than 35 degrees centigrade and it has to be less than equal to 40. So this is going to cover the range temperature between 36 to 40. Okay, so this is going to cover this range. And here the temperature, any value of temperature less than equal to 35 degrees centigrade, it can be up to 35 degrees centigrade. So after 35 degrees centigrade, we are not going to turn on that fan, but after 35 degrees centigrade, we'll check whether it is in between this range. And in case of this, I'll write the fan speed equals to 1. Okay, the fan is rotating at the first speed. And I got the second option as well. If temperature is greater than 40, that means we start from the 41, and temperature less than equals to 45. So it will cover up to the 45. What will happen in this case? So write print fan speed equals to 2. In this case, the speed of fan will be 2. So let's go further again. One more condition you can add as per your choice. You may add unlimited conditions here. Temperature greater than let's say 45 and temperature less than equals to 50 degrees centigrade. So in this case I put here, okay, here no semicolon, it should be colon, print fan speed equals to 3. In this case, the fan is rotating at the third speed. And by default, the last statement, else print fan speed equals to 4. Otherwise, the fan, if the temperature is not less than 35, then it will check for this. Okay, so basically, how it works, that we'll understand after that we'll run this. Now, firstly, it will going to check whether the temperature is less than 35 degrees centigrade. So if yes, then it will turn off the fan. If the temperature is not less than or equal to 35, then it will check the second condition, whether the temperature is greater than 35 degrees centigrade or it is less than the 40 degrees centigrade. That means whether the temperature is in this range, 36 to 40 is the range of temperature for this condition. In that case, the fan speed will be 1. Again, it will, if this is again false, if the temperature is not in this range also, then we'll check this thing, whether it is in between 40 to 45, 41 to 45. In that case, the fan speed will 2. If this condition also gets false, then it will check for this condition. And again, if this is false, then it will, by default, without any condition, will going to execute the last option. So this covers actual range of temperatures, and everything is covered in this. So let's run this and check. Now I'll put a temperature, let's say 34. In this case, the fan should be off, and here it is, the fan is off. Now I'll run and I'll put the temperature 36, which is in the range of 36 to 40. So that fan speed should be 1, and here it is, the fan speed is 1. Again, I'll check for the third options, my 48 degrees centigrade room temperature. In this case, the fan speed has to be 3, and it has to be there. Okay, the fan speed is 3. And for any other temperature, let's say I put a temperature 200 degrees centigrade, which is beyond that. So in this case, it should display that the fan speed is 4. For any other temperature greater than 50, it should display fan speed 4. And here it is happening. So everything is happening as per our expectation. Okay. So in this way, you can use some relational operators, like this is greater than, less than, equals to operator. This and is a logical operator which is used to combine the two different conditions. So is there only this thing, or is there only this logical operator or and operator is there? Is there any other operator? Yes, we can have some not operator. We can have some or operator in as a logical operators. Okay. So this is all about the if statement, how we can use the basic if statement in Python programming. But there are certain things, like you can even write a shorthand if statement as well. So that is also a possibility, that if this if statement is quite a simplified form of if statement, but you can actually put a very shortcut method to write some if statement. Okay, so that is also possible in Python, that you can use some shorthand notation of if statements, and that also we will discuss. How we can write a Python code or if statement line. In a single line, actually you can put a if statement, and that we are going to see now. For example, I'll discuss that on the command prompt. So here it is. If I want to write an if statement in a single line, so how I can write? Let's say I want to print something. I want to just discuss which number is greater. So I assign two numbers, a equal to 10, and let's say b equals to 5. And I just want to print whether which number is greater, or whether a is greater than b. That is what I want to print. So if I write a is greater than b, and then just write colon, and here you write print a is greater. Okay, so like this you'll write, and this is a very shorthand notation. In a single line you have written this thing. So now once you hit enter again, so it is printing a is greater. So this thing will happen. You can write a shorthand if statement. Secondly, this is okay, you have got only one option. If it is greater than that, you have to print this. What if you are using if and else statement? For example, I want to print if the a is greater, then I have to print a. Otherwise, if the B is greater, then I have to print B. So in that case, I'll write like this: print A if A is greater than B, else print B, like this. Okay, so now again in this particular statement or in this particular line, so it's like English language only. Okay, so if it is greater, do this. If it is not greater, do that. Okay, like this. So if print A, do this. If this happens, if this is true, otherwise do this. So again we'll enter and it is printing A. Okay, it is printing the A statement because the A is greater than B. So likewise, you can put some shortcut methods for the if statement, and this is very much interesting thing. Okay, in Python programming. So now let's go a little bit further. This is all about the if statement, and this I am giving just a shortcut notations for this. This is quite tricky, and sometimes in interviews or in the aptitude test, the questions are asked on this kind of thing. That's why I'm covering. But at the beginner level, you can restrict your scope to this kind of simple syntax. You should not go for the complicated things at a beginner level. But once you have good experience with Python and you become familiar with Python, then go for the shortcut notations. Now we'll discuss about the while loop and some looping structures in programming. Now this was all about the decision control. Unlike C programming, as C language has got case control in programming, but the Python doesn't have that thing. Okay, it doesn't have switch case statement in programming. So that is again a good thing, which makes Python a little bit easy to understand. Secondly, let us try to understand what is looping and why we need to use decision control in our programming. A very basic thing is that as a human being, you are repeating your actions every day. For example, today you are going to school or college. Tomorrow also you are going to be there in college. And day after tomorrow, again the same thing. Secondly, your body cycle is also repeating itself. For example, you are waking up at 6 a.m., then you are taking some breakfast and then other things, other activities. After that, you are taking lunch and dinner, and again you are going to bed. So this thing is happening every day. You are repeating these things. When the seasons are repeating, rainy season, then winter season, then summer, again there will be rainy season, again winter, again summer. So repeating. So we are actually living in a cyclic world, or everything is repeating around us. So everything is happening in repetitions. We are continuously repeating our actions. Similarly, whenever I'm using a automation system, a microcontroller or a robot, it should repeat its task. For example, if I'm using a temperature control fan system, now I'm expecting that fan should start whenever room temperature is greater than 35 degrees centigrade. This is a very simple task. At morning 10 a.m., I switched on the system. Now the sensor checked that the temperature is 20 degrees centigrade at morning 10 a.m. It is not greater than 35 degrees centigrade at 10 a.m. So it will turn off the fan, so fan is off. And at 2 p.m., if the temperature becomes 40 degrees centigrade, now in this case the fan should be on. But as if the hardware or that system is not repeating its action, the temperature measurement action is not repeated over the period of time, what will happen at 2 p.m.? It will not check the room temperature, as it is not repeating that thing. So it will not turn on the fan. So it will check temperature only once at 10 a.m. and at 2 p.m. even if the temperature becomes more than 35 degrees centigrade, the fan is still off. This happens if you are not using the loops. So everything should happen inside the loop. So loop is capable of repeating some actions. Okay, so it is helpful for doing some task again and again. This is one thing. Secondly, loop help us to avoid writing multiple lines of code. For example, if I have to check a room temperature after every 5 seconds, what I'll do, I'll write a check room temperature, delay 5 seconds, again check room temperature, delay 5 seconds. So I'll write infinite lines of codes in order to check just the room temperature. But if I put that in a loop, so I have to write only single statement. So let's understand this while loop first of all. and after that we'll discuss the for loop in detail. So if I equals to 1, so firstly I'll write this thing. I'll just write some variable I equals to 1, then while I less than 10, colon, print I, and then I'm writing I equals to I plus 1. Okay, and my loop is completed. So now this simple while loop is going to print all the values from 1 to not 10, because as it is written I less than equal to 10. So let's make it equal to 10, so that it will print all the values from 1 to 10. So it is going to repeat this thing, this print statement. I haven't written print 1, print 2, print 3, and like this print statement for 10 times. So without using this thing, if I have to do this, I would have to write this print statement for 10 number of times. So print 1, print 2, print 3, and then up to print 10. But if I am using this while loop, I will have to write this print statement only for once. And I'll put this inside a loop, and after that, it is going to print it. Now, two important things you must understand. The number one thing is this thing. If you do not specify this thing, I equal to 1, it's not possible to make entry inside the loop, because initially the value of I is unknown and it's undefined, so it's going to throw an error. But even if it doesn't throw any error, it will not understand whether what is the value of I and whether to make entry inside this loop or not. It's completely unknown. Okay, so in that case, it should be known to us whether the initial state of this is defined or not. It must, in order to make entry inside this while loop. So okay, if I equal to 1, and then we'll check with this condition, I is less than 10, so 1 is less than 10, yes, so it will make entry inside this loop. But if this is not the case, if you do not write like this, if this statement was not there, what will happen? 1 is less than 10, yes, it will print 1. Again, it will check 1 is less than 10, yes, again it will print 1. So this will become an infinite loop, will never end, because the value of I is 1 and always less than 10. So this is going to be infinite loop and it's not going to end. So this is what again we are not expecting. Somehow there has to be some mechanism by which we should come out of this loop, and this is nothing but this increment or decrement operator. By using this kind of operator, it is possible to jump out of this loop. So whenever the entry inside the loop is made, 1 is printed. Now I is incremented by 1, so I becomes 2. 2 is less than 10, yes, 2 is printed. Now I becomes 3. Now 3 is printed. Now 4, 5, 5, 6, 7. Now finally I becomes 10. Now 10 less than equal to 10, yes, again it is printed. Now I becomes 11, and now the 11 is not less than equal to 10, so it will jump out of this loop. This is not the simple thing going to happen. So as far as the outcome of this program is concerned, we are expecting it should print all the values from 1 to 10. So let's check it out whether it is happening. So after running this program, here it is. It is printing all the values from 1 to 10. Now we'll ask you what if I have to print in a reverse direction, 10 to 1. So in that case, you have to check, make changes in the condition I greater than equals to, or just greater than 0, print I, and here again you have to make some changes, minus. So what will happen? Initially I is 10, so 10 is greater than 0, yes, 10 is printed. Now I becomes 9 because I minus 1, so 9 will be printed, then 8, and then finally I becomes 1. Now 1 is greater than 0, yes, now it is printed. Now it will become 0. Now 0 is greater than 0, no, condition false. After that it will come out of this loop. So let's check it. So it will print from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now what if I just have to print 10, 8 like this? So in this case I just subtract by 2, it will print 10, then 8, and then 6 like this. So 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 like this. So these are some experiments that you can do inside this while loop. So as an assignment, I'll ask you to complete. You can print all the odd numbers from 1 to 100, and again all the odd numbers from 100 to 1 in reverse direction, then all the even numbers from 1 to 100 in forward direction, and all the odd numbers from 100 to 1 in reverse direction. That you will do as an assignment. Okay, with the help of this logic, just apply some logics and try to execute those codes. Okay, so this was all about the while loop is in a simple form. So it's a very basic programming structure and very basic looping structure. This is how you can use it, and you can give some numbers and range of numbers, and accordingly you can print. Again, there is one more loop in programming or in the Python programming. This is called as for loop, and which is more powerful than this while loop. Up till now, we haven't discussed any array kind of thing in Python or the collection data type. But I just give an example. If I write z equals to an array 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, comma 5. Okay. So what is this? Initially, when I write a equal to 10, that means the a is an integer type of variable which stores this value, the single value. But when I write z equal to like this in brackets like this, it can be a curly bracket, it can be a rectangular, rounded. We'll discuss that in tomorrow's session. Okay, what is meaning of rectangular brackets, rounded brackets, and curly brackets, and so on. But for this moment, just understand they are just array. It stores. So Z stores multiple numbers from 1 to 5. So if I want to print this thing in Python, a very simple loop, for loop, is very much powerful. For x in z, this is how we have to write it, and then print x. Simply print x. That will print all the values inside this thing. So run this. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, print x in the z, and that is going to print all the values from the one point to another point. So it's very easy to use the for loops here in this case. Now, secondly, the for loop also supports the range function. For example, let's okay that you are having some array and you are printing the values from this array. It's okay. But I want to print all the numbers from 1 to 10. So in this case, I can write like this: for x in range, let's say 10. So I want in the range of 10. So what I'm expecting, so it will print all the values from 1 to 10, and then print x. So as far as this is concerned, I'm expecting that it should print all the values from 1 to 10. But this is actually not going to happen. It will not print from 1 to 10. It is going to print from 0 to 9. Okay, the meaning is this index or this value is not considered. And it will start always from the 0. So it will print from 0 to 9, such 10 numbers. So that is how it is happening: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So here I'm not using any kind of increment operator, not using any kind of decrement operator. Still, it is printing all the values. So if I have to print from this thing 0 to 10, then I should write 0 to or in the range 11. So it will print from 0 to 10. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like this. Now you'll ask me, I don't want to print from 0 to 10. I want to print from 1 to 10. How I can do that? Yes, you can do that using some simple syntax. You just have to give start value 1, 11. So initial value is 1, so it will start from the 1 and will start incrementing by 1, and it will print 1 to 10. Keep in mind the last index is not included. Before that, whatever value is there, that will be included. So it will print from 1 to 10. This is how. It is printing from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, very good. So now secondly, what if I have to print 1, then 3, then 5 odd numbers from 1 to 10? In that case, you specify one more parameter here, increment by 2. Okay, instead of default value is 1, if you do not specify anything there, it will be incrementing by 1. If you specify some value there, it will be incrementing by 2. So, let's run this code and let's check whether it's printing all the odd numbers. So it is printing all the odd numbers from 1 to 10. So I'll, what if I have to print in a reverse direction? Let's say I want to print from 11, I'll put here 11, and then I want the 1. So I'm expecting it is going for 10 to 1. So not going to happen. As far as the previous experience is concerned, the first index is considered, so it will print 11. But the second index is not included, so it should print 11 to 2. So what I'm expecting, it should it print 11 to 1. Sorry, 2, because the second index will not be considered. This is what I'm expecting. Again, this is not going to happen. Or let's say I want to print from 10 to 1, so I put here 10. So whether this thing is going to happen, if I write like this, what I'm expecting, this thing should happen, because as far as my previous experience is concerned, the first index is included. When I printed 1 to 11, so 1 was printed, 10 was printed, but 11 was not printed. That means the second index is not printed. Before that, everything is printed. So here, if I am expecting that it will print at 10, but will not print 1 as is the last index, but can it print 2? So this is how, as far as our previous experience is concerned, it will print. But let's check first of all, and then I'll tell you, okay, what is the problem. It's not printing anything, okay? Absolutely nothing. Nothing has been printed. Why? Because the third index or the third parameter is missing. Why it is missing, or it is missing, okay, and why it is not considering 10, then 9, then 8. When I have written 1 to 11, it was automatically incrementing by 1, 2, 3, 4, considering a default value of 1. But when I'm writing in the reverse direction, it's not happening. This is because by default the increment is 1. This happens. Even if you specify, do not specify, the by default increment is 1. So it will increment 10 by 1, so that becomes 11, and the 11 is not in the range from 10 to 1. So in this range, number 11, 12, 13, 14 is not in that range. So instead of plus 1, you should write minus 1. So once I put minus 1, that will 10 minus 1, 9, and likewise it will start things. So 10, 9, something like that, 2. Okay. Now keep in mind 2, not this thing. Now if I write here minus 2, then automatically it's going to be printing 10, 8, and like this. So it's happening. So as an assignment, I'll give you, so print all the even numbers from 0 to 100 in the forward direction using for loop, all odd numbers in 0 to 100 using forward direction using for loop, and do the same thing in reverse direction. So that will be the assignment for you. Just check some concepts. Of course, the for loops and while loop also have some things, or like some statements which we are not considering here, because we have got a limited time. But I am covering the basic fundas of using for loop, while loop, and their indexing, and using the eval statements. But there can be a even multiple things, or there can be multiple topics inside that also. But you can explore once you understand these things. Okay, so you can apply for loop in reverse direction. You can use the for loop in forward direction. You can use even the while loop in forward direction. You can use while loop in reverse direction as well. And the decision control, you have just understood how we can use the decision control. Fortunately, Python has got only if statement, if else statement, and elif statement. It doesn't have switch case, so it simplifies our job. Secondly, unlike C programming language, Python doesn't support do while loop as again. So we only two loops we have to study, while loop and for loop, and again that is going to be a very much easy thing for us in order to understand these two loops in Python. Okay, so now I will give some time to ask some queries in a chat box. So this will be a question answer session now. So if you have any doubts and queries regarding this, some topics you don't understand, or you have some queries, you can ask in the chat box. We'll wait for that. Okay, it's a very good question by Saptarshi Bhosle that she is asking so why we are not defining x in a for loop. Okay, if you are referring to the other programming language like C, where we have to initially declare something like int x, and then for x is less than or x equal to 0, x less than this thing like this. Okay, for loop in Python doesn't need any previous declaration. Okay, so once you write for x in Z, automatically x is declared or x is defined there, and it will be starting from the very first statement. Okay, then again, Omkar has got the question: can we use case and break statements in programming? See, the switch case statement is not there in Python, but definitely break statement is there. And let's discuss how we can use the break statement. So as you have asked the question, I'll use the break statement here. So what I'll do, if x is equals to 5, okay, or instead of minus 2, I'll minus 1 only. I'll write here break statement. Okay, so definitely you can use the break statement and continue statement here. So we'll discuss this thing, break and continue statement. But you can't use switch case because it is not there. So break statement, what we will do, whenever x will be equal to 5. So firstly, let's understand without break what happens. So I just comment this thing, these two things I am commenting, and what is the actual outcome of our program. So 10, 9, everything, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2. But if I use the break statement here, that means if x becomes 5, the entire for loop will be terminated, premature termination of this loop without completing. So once this is there, it will print from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 up to this. Once it becomes 5, the loop execution is terminated. Everything is terminated. Okay. This happens once you use the break statement. There is another statement in looping that is called as continue statement. If you use continue statement, it will only skip this thing. X equal to 5 wala part, that will be skipped. But it will keep on looping the next statement. So let's check this. So you have written this. See, the actual outcome of our program was expected like this: 10, 9, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Here everything is up to the mark: 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. But after that 5 is missing. Then 4, 3, 2. So this is how the continue statement will work. It will skip this iteration only, and after that it will continue. But the break statement will completely terminate the for loop or while loop. This thing you can use in while loop as well, and for loop as well. And both the looping structures support this, but switch case is not supported by the Python. Okay, so we'll wait for the next question. Please put questions in chat box so that the Omkar has got the question. The Python has a limitation with databases access. Why? What exactly you want to ask? Can you just elaborate your question? What kind of databases you are talking about? If you are talking about the MySQL or SQL kind of databases, or the cloud databases, or SQLite databases, or any database structures like we can handle the Excel sheets in Python, or any databases. Okay, you are talking about the SQL databases. So actually, not such any kind of limitation. You have got the lots of Python libraries dealing with the SQL data sets. Okay, There were some problems. Maybe if you are using Python 2.2 second version of Python, Python 2 and Python 3, you may find some functional differences. Wherein the Python 2 is using different functions, and the Python 3 is using different functions to handle this thing, or using the different libraries. That's the issue. The Python has the major issue like the versions. So once the version is upgraded, some features are removed